And I just couldn't believe when a business owner, an entrepreneur, told me that their give a damn was gone. And it just reminded me of that thing we've talked about a lot, the fight or flight response in human beings, and how you can apply that same principle, that same stress response as a business owner and entrepreneur.
3, 2, 1.
My whole purpose for this call is to give business owners like yourself, like myself, insight into the success, the failures, the day-to-day struggles, and the real-life examples of how I've won and lost over the last 12 years of growing my own businesses. It's my hope that you'll engage and ask real questions of myself and my team so that you can avoid the pitfalls, the roadblocks, and the struggles that I've overcome. I want to share with you what I'm doing in my businesses, plus the businesses that I help run across this country. I want to give you the insight that I've learned coaching clients in medical, real estate, accounting, and other professional services, and how we've helped them live the life of a visionary entrepreneur, scale their organizations, and leave a lasting legacy on this world.
So, Jared, we work with business owners all the time, and high stress, high anxiety. If it's not the business owner, it's definitely the manager. Stress, anxiety, part of the job, but you're never stressed.
Oh, I would say that that's not true, right? Stress is part of a healthy human, right? Good stress, bad stress.
But you don't have this, like, anxiety doesn't just ooze out of Jared.
Oh, well, for sure. So I think what I've learned to do is manage the stress. I've learned to use the fight or flight response to determine, right, I call it which hill to die on. Is that the problem that I want to give my anxiety and my energy to? Or is that something that I'm going to let roll off my shoulders and move on to the next one that maybe is the hill I want to fight or the place that I want to make changes in my practice?
So you're saying one of the first ways that you decide, am I going to be stressed about this topic? If you're looking at fight or flight, anxiety is happening, stress is happening, frustrations are happening. One of your first mechanisms for dealing with it is this thing big enough, whatever the issue is, big enough that I want to die on this hill, or is this my battle I want to pick?
Yeah, and the way that I make that determination goes back to things we've talked about before, or what is really the starting point for our coaching clients is what is your overall purpose? And if you know what your overall purpose is of yourself or your organization, making that decision, fight or flight, becomes much easier because you know where you're going in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure people probably at this point think that we sound like broken records as much as we talk about purpose, vision, passion, core values. But if you were in a situation of fight or flight and you had to decide, is this the hill I'm going to die on and fight on, or do I need to give up on this problem, move elsewhere? There's only one way to make that decision, and it has to be with you focusing on what you originally set out to do, right? If you were, we love the car metaphors here, if you were driving to New York City in a car and you decided there was a left path or a right path and you knew the left road was going to take you to Montana and the right path was going to take you to New York City, it'd be an obvious choice.
Sure.
But in business, it's not always crystal clear of left path and right path. You can't make that decision, but you do need a compass. You need a North Star or a compass that will tell you this is still the direction you're going, but do you really want to take this left-hand turn right now?
Well, and I think for all of the business owners that join us on here, in my journey over the last 12 years, and as I'm sitting here trying to help you realize what things to avoid that Jared experienced in the past and learned from, and how I focus on getting my 10-year vision or my 10-year goals accomplished, you really have to dive into making these decisions quickly and moving on from them, right? The stress manifests itself by indecision. And so if you can start to master the fight or the flight mechanism, you can start solving these problems or moving beyond them quicker, and the anxiety or the stress doesn't have an opportunity to grow within you.
So really step one is knowing, based on your vision for the company, where you're trying to get to, fight or flight kicks in, stress happens. You have to know, does this keep me on target with my goals that I set out, or does it distract me? Is it the hill that I want to die on to fight, or do I want to flee? And then step two is attack speed.
Yeah.
So if there is a problem, you have to make a quick decision on, yes, I'm fighting this, or yes, I'm going to keep pushing this agenda, or I'm going to make this decision, or no, I'm going to give up on it. But attack speed would be number 2.
Yeah, and I think 100%, I love that. And the idea of flight or fleeing is not a negative.
No, absolutely.
There's often times when fleeing, or if you go way back, turning the other cheek is a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so I look at stories in my practice, and the first one that popped into my head while Morgan was explaining that was the day that my management team walked out on me and the day that my brother opened a competing business in town. And at that moment, I had 2 choices. I could fight what was happening, or I could flee from that craziness and flee from the distraction that would have on my purpose, right? Could be competitor, could be family issues, could be a whole lot of chaos going on. And I could get caught up in that moment and get distracted from my purpose, or I could choose to flee from that situation and go back to my purpose and my 10-year vision.
Yeah. I love that, because the way I sum that up, and I definitely believe this is true, because I haven't seen Jared battle his ego too many times, where I have seen other business owners battle their ego, is maybe recommendation number 3 is you have to take your ego out of the equation.
Sure.
Because surely there was a part of you, I would assume, that your brother going out and doing that maybe initially wanted to say, well, I'll do better than him, I'll destroy him, I'll attack this situation. But when you are considering fleeing or fighting, is this the hill you want to die on? You can't let your ego be a part of that equation. You have to strictly look at your vision and say, does it distract me, or does it take me towards my goals and my vision? And your ego can't pull you back down that left-hand road that you shouldn't be going down. You have to keep the path, and your ego will destroy you if you allow it.
Sure. And then another story, right, in our audiology clinic side, there's so many opportunities of stressors coming, anxiety coming. It could be a staff member quitting. It could be over-the-counter hearing aids. It could be insurance reimbursement, right? And each one of those, I have to once again decide, am I going to fight this or flee from this? And I look at both of those as strengths. In the right time, you need to fight, and in other times, the strength is in fleeing, right? So I have new clients come in, or new staff members come in and say, hey, we have to take insurance, right? We have to participate in this third-party network, and I have a choice, right, in that moment. I could flee from this and let something that I don't believe in creep into my practice, and I could honor their request. Or I could say, no, I'm gonna fight you on this one. We are a cash pay practice. We build value in what we do, and our core values, our purpose, and our vision says we will not participate. And that is the fight that I wanna have. I'm not gonna flee from that conversation because I hold it true to where we're going and what we're doing.
Yeah, and it goes back to the only way that Jared can know that that's a fight that he wants to go after and go back to these new staff members or current staff members and talk to them about insurance is him knowing when he started his business, and his entire business model is built around being a renegade. It's built around doing things differently than the way the industry was doing it. So when someone brings up something like insurance, he can immediately say absolutely not, and here's why. And he has justification, he has reason, he has logic behind why that's a hard no, and that is a hill he wants to die on, because 10 years ago when he took his grandmother into the clinic, he had a list of things he didn't like of what he experienced. So he'll never ever do those things, and that was one that was worth fighting.
Sure. And I mean, other moments, right, just in my journey, if you think about the way we send a welcome package to everybody that books an appointment, or the amount of money that we invest in a thank you gift for everybody that starts treatment in our practice, right? The CPA is going to tell me, Jared, you don't need to do those things. You could save money, you could be more profitable, you could not do those 2 things. And I have to have a choice here. Am I going to flee from this conversation, or am I going to go head to head with the CPA or the administrator and say, but we're selling an $8,000 treatment, and part of my value proposition as the trusted authority, part of my value proposition of building value and charging more than any other practice in our market or in our nation is built upon this marketing and educational model. And that fight I will have every single time with somebody that comes to me and says, we should get rid of this, we should get rid of that. But I'm not gonna flee from that conversation.
And I love that, because that for me is tip number 4, which is tracking data. Anytime you're going to manage your stress, which is really what we're talking about as a business owner, the anxieties, the stress that you all live with, fight or flight, you can't take that into the equation unless you have the data behind the decision. So you have to know, one that always is relative for me is Jared's marketing. Jared gets labeled all the time, even to this day, new employees, people that don't know us, current clients. We send too much stuff, right? And Jared loves this topic. I always see him grin every time an employee brings up, I think we send too much content, because he knows the data, he tracks the data behind opt-out rate. People that unsubscribe, people that do call the office and complain, and those numbers are so small, so insignificant that he knows he's right. Not because of his ego, because of the data that he tracks, he's willing to have that fight, and I think the same is true for what you just said.
Yeah, I mean, right, education, knowledge is power, data is power, knowing the science of your business is power. We talk a lot about that in our 4 pillars, specifically on marketing, right? When I can... every practice, every business will get somebody opting out of their marketing or educational material. Every business or practice is going to have somebody hate them, complain about them, disagree with them. What I look at is, let's look at the people that do give us money. Let's look at our sales process. Let's look at our marketing process. Let's look at the data of opt-out versus conversions. Right? And so I often, with a new staff member who doesn't come from a sales background, who doesn't come from a treatment background or a marketing background, this fight happens, right? And it's not a knockdown, drag out, punch each other fight, but it is a healthy friction and a healthy conversation on, but the data says, and then we show opt-out rate versus conversion. We show that it takes 7 to 12 marketing touches for somebody to convert. We show that actually on the 6th, 7th, and 8th attempt, we actually have a higher conversion than on the 1st or 2nd or 3rd touch point.
Right. And it really, truly, that's the only way to take the ego out of it, right? We joke all the time about facts, not feelings, and when you're tracking data and you're using data as a tool, you can do that.
Sure.
I have one other tip here. My final tip, unless you have anything that you want to add last minute, then you've got to give the give a damn story, because it's just too good. My final tip is forward focus. So when it comes to fight or flight, when it comes to managing your stress or the anxieties in the office, if you followed the tips so far, from choosing the hill that you want to die on, the attack speed, taking your ego out of it, and tracking your data, you have to have forward focus. And if you're coming to my leadership event in August, which if you're not, email me, Morgan@audexperts, audexperts.com, and I'll get you the information. I'm going to teach those people how to have forward focus in life, because what you can't do as a business owner when you're deciding to fight or to flee, and you're managing your stress and you're making a decision, hopefully quickly, is live in the past. When you make that decision, you have to stick with that decision. You can't live with regret, and you have to have forward focus, thinking about your vision, your purpose, why you set out to do what you're doing with your business, and forward focus your initiatives, not look in the rearview mirror.
Well, I love the forward focus concept. For me, it's always solving new problems, right? And so forward focus allows you to solve today's problem, and guess what? Every good solution is going to create 3 new problems. Right? So I would rather solve new problems all day long than rehash and hash the same problems over and over again, right? Every L10, every meeting, every team training, hearing the same old nonsense. So let's solve the problem before us with a forward focus, quick attack speed, right? And guess what? Be ready for the next 3 problems that pop up and embrace the fight or the flight that happens at that moment.
Agreed. Now tell us about the give a damn.
Well, so we had a business owner, right, that signed up to change their marketing system, right? And so there were bumps along the way. Like with any new initiative, any new marketing system, you're radically changing the way that you educate and treat patients, right? Going to be bumpy road every time. So set that expectation early. And throughout this process, it came to a point where she just one day picked up the phone and said, I'm done. My give a damn is gone. I no longer want to fight for this. I'm done. And she fled.
Yep.
Right? And I can tell you to this day, that practice has not grown at the rate that it should or could have. It's probably shrunk throughout the last few years. And it's because the owner's fight or flight, she made a choice, right? My guess is she made a choice based upon an obstacle or a struggle instead of making a choice based upon her purpose, her passion, or her 10-year goal.
Yep. Didn't have the data to prove that it was a good decision. And I was around at that time, and I can definitely say that ego was a part of it. And no vendors are perfect, you know, us included as coaches, Jared's marketing initiatives, any vendor that you hire to help your business, no one's perfect. But if you believe that that vendor is going to help get you closer to your 10-year vision, and they're also in alignment with your purpose, they understand why you do business, how you do business, and what you do for business, you have to get through those. Those are the hills that you have to die on. Those are the attack speed of which that you have to go and say, let's solve this problem together quicker. Let's get in the same room. Let's schedule a longer phone call. To Jared's point, let's solve new problems together. But instead deciding to flee without those tips that we take into consideration today, like data and ego, and now I believe, I agree with Jared, that they're actually worse off for it.
And I would just give every business owner, entrepreneur on this call, if you're ready to grow, if you're ready to be protected from what might be a coming recession, right, or depression, or whatever words you want to use, if you're anxious about the state of the economy, the state of your business, the state of your people, what you need to do right now is have the strongest purpose you've ever had. You have to have the strongest 10-year vision and goals that you've ever had. And you have to be ready with a future-focused decision-making process to decide, when am I going to fight and when am I going to flee?